Professor Samdong, it's a great honor to have this time with you. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. If I can just begin by asking, why is this such a critical time in Tibet's history now?
This is a very critical time in the history of Tibet because after 49 years of the first peaceful uprising in 1959, almost 2 generations have been changed inside Tibet. But the new generation inside Tibet, who do not have any former Tibetan heritage or cultural training, or they do not have seen even His Holiness, but still that younger generation has a great feeling for the Tibet cause, Tibet nation, and they choose to uprise peacefully this time, largely leading by the young people. And once again, they have demonstrated their deep-rooted dissatisfaction to the policies of PRC leadership. And they have also drawn the attention of the world community for the situation inside Tibet. And we very much hoped in the beginning that the PRC leadership will realize the dissatisfaction of the Tibetan people, and they will react appropriately, keeping in view the reality. A realistic reaction must be coming from them, but it was on the contrary. They choose not to pay any heed to the feelings of the Tibetan people and use brutal force against them. So this is once again become a very turning point and very critical moment for the history of Tibet. And we, the people in the free country, must do whatever they can do to solidarity with the Tibetan people inside Tibet, and whatever we can do to help them, we should do it. Therefore, it is a very important and very critical moment for us.
Thank you. And now that the PRC, Government of China, has rejected the memo on autonomy that was presented to them, is it perhaps appropriate, is it not appropriate that the middle way approach is taken off the table completely, while still keeping the door open for future talks, and replaced by specific conditions like stopping oppression inside Tibet, releasing prisoners, and so on?
Yes, since May this year, we have an informal talk with them in the 4th of May by the 2 envoys. Then thereafter we have the formal 7th round of talk in the beginning of July. Then finally, recently, the 8th round of talk we have had with them. And all these contexts, His Holiness envoys has raised the issue of the Tibetans inside Tibet, the release of prisoners, and giving a proper facility to the injured, and so on and so forth. This was one of the main topic to be discussed with them. But apart from that, the in continuity to the continuity of dialogue, I have had 7 rounds earlier. That is the real political issue of the Tibetan people, how the Tibetan people should get the full autonomy rights which are enshrined in the constitution of PRC. And during the 8th round of talk, we have given them explicitly how to implement the constitutional provisions and the law provisions in great detail. And all these aspirations we have enshrined in that memo is strictly in accordance with the PRC's constitutional provision. Now, rejection of this memo does not mean a failure of the middle path approach, but I think the PRC shall have to explain how and why they are not able to accept these provisions, which are, in our view, strictly within the constitutional provisions. If they have genuine reasons that our demands are not in accordance with the constitutional provision, then we are open to discuss it, debate on it. But the blunt rejection of the entirety of the memo, I don't think this is in accordance with the status and with the disposition of nation like PRC. And I still believe that they will come around to discuss in detail after study the memo in depth. And in that case, we are always open to discuss with them. Of course, they are bound to be different of opinions, and particularly different of opinions on the interpretation of the constitutional provisions. These are all negotiable. We are willing to discuss with them, and we are still open.
And yet, should the rhetoric continue that is being used by the PRC that no concession will ever be made, after some time the door is open to clear away the middle way approach and replace that with something that is returning the ball to the court of the PRC and saying now it's up to them to come up with something?
This is too early to say. We should give sufficient time to the PRC leadership to study and to understand it. And the international community should also look to the memos. Now it is public, in the public domain. Everybody is access to that memo. And now everybody can judge how much reasonable the Tibetan demands are concerned, and how much irrational the response of the PRC leadership. And this is open before the entire humanity, and they will judge it. And we still hope that the PRC leadership shall have wisdom to understand the importance of the Holiness middle path approach to find a resolution to the Tibet problem, which is now more than 60 years old. And if China is really sincere to have unity and stability for the PRC as a nation, then they must find a solution to the Tibet issue. And Tibet issue cannot be ignored, which is amply demonstrated this year by the peaceful demonstrations of the all work of life, and all places of Tibet have been sufficiently exhibited, and they should understand the real situation, and they should be taking a pragmatic approach to it.
Thank you. And regarding Satyagraha, Professor Sangdom, what is your personal view of Satyagraha and its continuing role in the Tibet movement?
Satyagraha is one of the best and appropriate instrument to achieve justice through a peaceful and non-violent way. But to become a Satyagrahi, there are a lot of requisites to become a qualified satyagrahi. And we are still in short among the Tibetan community. People are really ready to undertake a satyagrahi. In spite of that, I think finally, to find a solution to the Tibet question, the satyagraha is the only way, and there is no any other alternative. So we shall have to work hard to prepare that younger generation of Tibetan people to qualify themselves to become a satyagrahi.
Thank you. Satyagraha also seems to imply this creating and maintaining channels of communication between the Tibetan and Chinese. Specifically, I'd like to ask about the internet, which is possibly the easiest medium for this creation and maintaining of communication. And it extends from the soft forms, things like creating and distributing video material, all the way to the harder forms, like entering and hacking into computers. How can this technology best be embraced in light of Satyagraha philosophy? What would be considered acceptable or unacceptable uses of this technology from the Tibetan perspective? And can there be a, if we could call it that, a cyber Satyagraha component to the movement?
The communication means such as internet and other means of modern technology of communication are already accepted by the Tibetans as a means of our struggle and a means of satyagraha. I think this is absolutely appropriate to embrace this technology, because this technology appears to be non-violent, and it does not involve directly or indirectly any kind of violence if the user is a non-violent person, and therefore this is very much employable by a satyagrahi. And you have very rightly mentioned that most important component of satyagraha movement is communication. Communicate with each other, explain with each other, argue with each other, and for that purpose the modern communication technology, including the internet, email, and telephonic conversation, all these are very useful and important, and we are in full use of these things.
It was suggested, oh sorry, let me start with this one. There's one more question here. Professor Samdong, Hu Jintao said recently, still this month, that His Holiness Dalai Lama would practice apartheid if he were to return to Tibet. At the same time, in South Africa we have a situation with the Chinese community who lived there during the apartheid years, who are now being authorized by the South African government to apply for compensation under the BEE, or Black Economic Empowerment policy of the government, as they had been black victims of, as if they had been black victims of apartheid. Is this perhaps an opportunity to explore the language of apartheid, which is internationally very well known, and to use that exploration to at once refute the misplaced Chinese accusations against His Holiness?
I could not understand well your question.
Sorry, it is a long question. So,
to use
the language of apartheid, as Hu Jintao has said, if His Holiness comes back to Tibet, then he would practice apartheid by separating, creating ethnic domination and segregating the communities. And in South Africa, at the moment, the government of South Africa has allowed the Chinese community there to apply for financial compensations as if they had been victims during apartheid in South Africa. So there are two things happening with this idea of apartheid, and I'm wondering if there needs to be a response to that in which it's clarified that His Holiness would never be able to practice apartheid because he's after genuine autonomy, not apartheid. And in actual fact, China is practicing a form of apartheid in Tibet right now.
First of all, His Holiness return to Tibet is not at all an issue between the Tibetans and PRC. His Holiness never asked PRC to allow him to return. And he may return or he may not return. This is nothing to do the conflict between the PRC and the Tibetan people. And the PRC would like to invite His Holiness back. His Holiness may consider it. Otherwise, between our dialogue with the PRC leadership through the His Holiness invoice, no question about His Holiness return has been raised and it has been discussed. So therefore, we do not attach any importance to the Hu Jintao statement about the return of His Holiness. His Holiness can return if the Tibet issue is resolved for the people of Tibet, and that is most important. And at this moment, we do not think that it is necessary to reciprocate or respond to the statement of Hu Jintao about His Holiness return.
Thank you. And the last question, Professor Samdong, is that it was actually here during this Tibet Support Group international meeting, it was suggested last night that the forthcoming year's meeting could take place in South Africa. And I'd like to just know, is that a good idea, and would you come to South Africa, please, if we host it there next year?
Of course, I would love to visit South Africa once again. I still very much cherish my visits. The only visit I have had in South Africa quite long time before, so I would like to come. As far as the international TIG's meeting in South Africa, I think this is very good idea, and we have had this meeting in the West and also in India. Now a new continent, if we could have meeting in the South Africa, I think that is very significant. We should do that.
Thank you very much, Professor. And from South African Friends of Tibet, thank you again.
Welcome. Yes?
I'll hold that.
Please hold it still, could you?
Yes.
Is it okay if I stay here?
Yeah, you stay here.
Okay. Well, can I also speak into it?
Yeah, if you could stay where you were and just, you don't have to worry so much about my questions. Okay, just could you please highlight some of the, basically what would be the benefits of, and if any, the downfalls of a meaningful autonomous region or a meaningfully autonomous Tibet? What would the benefits be for Tibet, for China, and for the rest of the world that you can foresee, please?
Actually, when we talk of autonomy, we strictly refer to the Gandhi's idea of Swaraj. And Swaraj is quite different from independence. Independence is referring to strictly a political affair, while talking about autonomy, it more refers to a cultural, social, economy, education, and particularly spiritual affairs. So therefore, a meaningful autonomy for Tibet would benefit the Chinese people, because the Chinese people then can have a very close relationship with the Tibetan people, and by which there would be a immensely benefit for spiritual affairs and moral affairs. And Tibetan people will in return benefit from the PRC, economic, modern development, and perhaps for certain extent even defense. So therefore the manifold autonomy is beneficial to both the people of Tibet and people of China, and through which atmosphere of peace and stability can be established in the Asian region, and which will definitely benefit the entire world and the entire humanity.
In light of the present global economic crisis, the need for nations to cooperate is very urgent. How would you suggest that the nations cooperate?
Nations cooperation is absolutely necessary, not only the time of the economic crisis of today, but the economic stability of the world. The cooperation is absolutely important. But what is cooperation? That need to be understood. Cooperation means free from competition. Unless you give up competition, there cannot be any meaningful cooperation. So to give up the competition, you need entire reorientation of the economic system. Otherwise, the cooperation may not be possible.
Sorry? Yeah, we have an economic system we've developed in South Africa called South African New Economics, the letters of which SANE systems we call them. And the one that we're developing is called the Community Exchange System, where money's in infinite supply, and anyone like a state can create money where they need to make a transaction. So before, where two people couldn't, let's say you have a broken house, someone across the street who's a builder, before if there was no money, the house couldn't be fixed. Now with this system, you both have an account on the internet, and the person who owns the house says, okay, please fix it. He says 5,000. So, okay, he takes his account number, he debits him minus 5,000, and the person who's the builder now plus 5,000, and then they have made the exchange. And then he never has to see each other again. He can pay off his debt by, in his house he gives Tibetan lessons, 100 units an hour, and after you know, what would it be, 50 hours of Tibetan lessons, then he's paid off his debt of getting his house fixed. There's no need for a state, there's no inflation, and it allows these transactions to happen. And then, what's great, no competition, because it's an infinite supply. You can now cooperation and trust other moralities that it is valuable. And so I would love to set one up in Dharamsala, that's where we're off to next. Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
Very good idea.
Effectively, it's just an online trading system, non-competitive, and it has no interest built into it.
Right, yeah.
And it supports local community trading, and everyone has to offer something. And the more people on it, the more value. In Cape Town, as Charlie was saying, there's already thousands of people using the system, and we would love to introduce to Dharamsala and Baikalpur while we're here on our trip still now, to just explore what's possible.
Oh yes, it's a very good idea.
Okay. Okay. If we could organize all nations into a cooperative structure, what goal should we be working towards?
The goal should be everyone should be satisfied their real needs, and each individual should know what is his or her real needs, and stop wastage of commodity or resources more than one's own need, and a need-based economy, to develop a need-based economy, not in a kind of consumerism, a need-based economy, not a greed-based economy. That should be goal of the world cooperation. Only then you will have a sustainable economy. Otherwise, there's no way to, unless your consumption becomes a sustainable economy can never be built up. All the resources are finite, and if your usage is infinite, then there will be no stability. So therefore, people should know the needs, and then the economic should be based on the real needs. That is absolutely important.
How might a system of world peace in which the supremacy of humanity over matter and ideology be maintained?
I don't know. Equality is the basis of peace, and anyone maintains some kind of supremacy, then the real peace appears to be difficult. Justice, equality are the basis of real peace, for which no one should have any supremacy over anyone.
Okay. Okay, my question is now relating to, do you think, okay, is now going to relate to universal responsibility and the idea of the Tibetan government is trying to liberate the Tibetan people into meaningful autonomy, and with the greatest respect for the nobility of the cause and the necessity of it and the imperativeness of that for all humanity. Is it not a national government rather than a universal government, so it's only nationally responsible rather than universally responsible?
We do not believe in the so-called nationalism. We also do not believe the necessity of national government or nation-state theory. Nation-state theory divides the humanity into nations and into states. All humanity are equal. All humanity are brothers and sisters with each other. But we are working for a certain degree of autonomy for the Tibetan people with sense of universal responsibility. The Tibetan people has a universal obligation. Our universal obligation is to preserve, promote and disseminate the unique spiritual and cultural heritage of Tibet, which is very much relevant and beneficial to entire humanity. This is our universal responsibility. Each one of the Tibetan people has a universal responsibility to share our spiritual heritage to everyone, with everyone of the humanity. And in order to perform that universal responsibility, we need certain degree of freedom, certain degree of autonomy, within which we are able to function ourselves according to the need and according to the requirement of the spirituality and its functioning, and to perform the responsibility, and for which we are seeking the manifold autonomy. And if manifold autonomy is granted to the Tibetan people will be able to perform its universal responsibility. So the autonomy itself is not an end, it is a mean. The end is the proper performance of our universal responsibility, and enabled to do that, we need a certain degree of autonomy. So therefore, it is a performance of a universal responsibility.
Okay. If do you feel that the Tibetan government structure and the ideological structure of spiritual and temporal rule united would be a good model for an international system of government whose sovereignty, as it were, its autonomy was self-granted, and as its universal responsibility, it grants it unto itself. It isn't granted it by the Chinese or anyone else, and its home would be the entire planet. Do you feel that would be a useful system, or at this time?
Useful system, the combination of
So to set up a global government with the Tibetan government and exile structure, and you are sovereign. Yeah, but not of everyone, just of anyone who chooses.
right.
Who chooses.
I think so. A system which is void of morality and spirituality, that will not work beneficial in long term for its people. Any system which is based on truth and the morality, only then that system can deliver the justice. Therefore, the separation of state and the church is a good, but a separation of state and morality, it is a disaster. So therefore, a combination of temporal with the spirituality is, I think, the real basis of happiness for everyone.
Okay, so I think our time is up. Yeah. Of course. Yeah, that is pretty much everything. I'd just like to say thank you very, very much.
Yeah. And my greetings to all of you. Thank you very much. Yes, South Africa people. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The humanity shall have to reduce its desire, and without reduce the desire, you cannot reduce the competition, and without reducing the competition, you cannot build up in a cooperation, and without cooperation, you can never eliminate the barriers as nations or as states or as countries or so on and so forth. So therefore, people should understand themselves. The self-realization is the, I think, first step to know what is one's need and what is one's desire. The greed and desire, the removal of greed and desire is the essential way to break down the boundaries between the humanity. And this is possible, but nobody has tried it.
Humbling. Professor Sangdom Rinpoche is esteemed, renowned throughout the world, in Tibet, obviously, in India, absolutely, as one of the finest minds, and as the democratically elected representative of the Tibetan people, representing over 6 million people, being in a position, as we are at South African Friends of Tibet, to come and join the International Tibet Support Group here this weekend on special request from the Tibetan government in exile, headed by Professor Sangdom Rinpoche and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to come and give input suggestions, advice on how the Tibetan government in exile might be able to take the movement forward practically is also it's an amazing opportunity to give constructive input at a critical time in Tibet's history. So it feels great, it feels amazing, very inspiring. He is obviously a man of his people, and they couldn't do better at this time in their history. And we're going up to Dharamsala, we're going into the heart of the Tibetan community in India on tomorrow. We'll be there on Tuesday morning, and the idea to go and implement local non-competitive economic trading systems there is also, I think, a great blessing of something we already see happening. And I know you're developing in Cape Town and taking it to the next level as well. So to be able to go and actually share those fruits with these kind, beautiful people, so much wisdom for bringing peace onto this planet, it feels great. How about you?
Feel good, feel good. Hey, let's try it, let's try it.
Let's try it.
Let's try it. Yes, we can.
Let me ask you.
Okay, if you like.
Of course.
Here comes people.
Is it rolling?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay.
Hello everybody.
Charlie.
Hello, my name is Charlie. I'm Charlie and I'm normally behind the camera, but I had the great pleasure of speaking to Sangdom Rinpoche. And he's the sharpest mind, the sharpest, most beautiful mind. Very, very kindly condescending to deal with the world of national politics to help us through it at this time. And so gracefully and just gently and patiently. He's very, 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 very lovely. I think we must take leaves from his very, very full and generous book and try it, really try a unified effort to come together and cooperate. And so I've dedicated my life to it, and I hope we can cooperate or be conscious of the fact that we are already cooperating on an interconnected level already. Yes, very much love. Bye.
And what do you think about the suggestion put forward last night and the confirmation and encouragement right now that South African Friends of Tibet bring this international Tibet support group and Sangdom Rinpoche back to South Africa, or for him back, but for the Tibet Support Group International for the first time ever to South Africa next year?
I think it can be only good for the cultivation of our consciousness of compassion and the beauty of everything right now. Maybe we could convince some monks to stay with us and teach the local guys some Tibetan medicines, Tibetan meditations, teach us compassion and some laughter yoga. And
it will certainly open many, many doors.
It will. Thank you, God. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everything. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangdom.
Thanks, Sangdom.